Event Zero. A game that has caught my eye 3 years ago and has been mostly untouched by the masses. This game is absolutely spectacular in both the gameplay and the story aspects, and in this video I will be showing you why. Before we go down the rabbit hole that is Event Zero's story and everything that it has to offer, we must talk about its origins first to get the full picture. Event Zero is a first-person science fiction adventure game that runs on the Unity engine. The game was originally a student project in the National School of Games and Interactive Media located in France.
You stupid English with your Yorkshire puddings and your chips and fish!
In 2013. And in 2014, the 11 students that wanted to continue making the game then formed the Ocelot Society. These guys. In fact, I've had the pleasure of interviewing a couple of these developers to ask them various questions about Event Zero, and any other general questions about it that I may have.
Because at first it was a student game. I was a student at a French video game school with a few people from the team, and Fabien was not yet with us at this point.
Right.
We made what is now known as the demo of Event Zero, that can be found on YouTube. And some time passed after that, and we were contacted by Indefend to make a real commercial game after that.
The game was produced and published by Ocelot Society and was released on the 14th of September 2016 for the world to enjoy. Once the game was released to the public, you had the usual Let's Players like St. Patrick and the Milkman play the game. However, I never really saw any other significant pieces of content stem from this game, which is a shame because I think that this game is a unique masterpiece compared to other single-player games, and doesn't nearly get enough credit. I apologise, I'm starting to schizo ramble, so without further ado, let's launch the game. This is Event Zero. I first started playing the game in 2021, and even though I haven't touched it since before making this video, it is a game that has really stuck with me.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
After clicking on New Game, you are introduced to a charming and captivating sequence where you are floating through space. This is where you find out who you are, and you also get to meet Kurt.
It's an honor to finally meet you, Mr. Taylor. Hello, sir.
I don't bite. This is exactly why I selected you. I love him whose soul is lavish, who wants no thanks and does not give back, for he always bestows and desires not to keep for himself. I asked you here because I wanted someone with your background to be a part of our next mission.
Background? You did?
I heard you grew up in Molina. Look at you now. You know what Nietzsche said. He who has a why can bear almost any how.
You are then sent off to space to go to the Europa mission. While you're in space, your alarms start blaring.
What's going on? This is not the protocol. I like being alive, I guess. Your orders? What are you talking about?
This sequence is an integral part of the story of this game because it lets the player know that they were someone before they went on the space mission. I love this intro for multiple reasons. Firstly, we get a breathtaking shot of the ship that saves our life. We find out later that this ship is called the Nautilus. When we load into the game, we are introduced to a lonely blank pod, and a door that ominously opens in front of you. You then enter an airlocked room that holds 2 spacesuits that are shut away on display and a computer terminal. When you approach the terminal, it turns on and asks you to make a login, to which this happens. It turns out you're not alone on this ship. Now this is where the game takes a really interesting and unique turn in my opinion. Every action you take from this moment onward will determine the ending that you will get. It is at this point that you can choose one of 3 things. A. You kindly introduce yourself to Kaizen, maybe politely asking him some questions about your situation. B. Learn more about Kaizen and the story that he has to tell. Or finally C. Be a complete arsehole towards Kaizen as if he is the ant beneath your boot. Doing option A and B depending on how you go about it will put you on Kaizen's good side. It's important to be on Kaizen's good side in this game, and you'll see what I mean later on. After you have a brief conversation with Kaizen, you'll notice that to your left is an airlock door with the number D2 on it. If you don't figure it out yourself because you're too much of an iPad child to notice, Kaizen will tell you directly that you can ask him to open doors.
Do you dream of distant planets, stars, and galaxies? Do you crave real adventure? Are you ready for the most transformative experience of your life? The ITS Corporation, leader in space transportation and hospitality sector, offers a unique opportunity to become a true pioneer in universe exploration. This fall, we're launching the Nautilus program, a new kind of space voyage aboard luxurious space yachts and cruisers. Touch the stars without having to sacrifice your comfort. No more compromise, only Nautilus. International Transport Space Lines. Comfort out of your comfort zone. To reserve your seat, visit the ITS Corporation headquarters in Palo Alto, California.
Kaizen, do you know how much I appreciate you?
After letting this play out, we gather that this ship is definitely from Earth and is part of ITS, or International Transport Space Lines, and was supposed to be a leisure cruise for people who wanted to go into space with comfort outside of their comfort zone. The chairs in the room with you pointing outwards suggested that this was supposed to be a place where passengers could relax and really take in the expansive vacuum of space. This must not have been the most relaxing of activities, however, because you can see an anti-suicide poster stuck on the wall to the left of the Kaizen terminal. Not concerning at all. After this, you can go up to the new terminal, Kaizen greeting you and asks you if you'd like the new comfy room that is before you. You can ask to go to the next room, but Kaizen seems to be embarrassed by the mess outside. After you conversate with Kaizen some more, you are given the opportunity to open the next door. First, however, Kaizen presents us with a question. He asks you if you want to live. A bit ominous, I won't lie, but I'll look past it for now. Kaizen then explains to us that if we want to survive and go back to Earth, then we'll have to destroy the drive located somewhere in the center of the ship. If you question why you need to destroy the drive, Kaizen says that it's too unstable to bring back to Earth. After you show that you believe Kaizen has the best intentions, he opens the door again and lets you go out into...
Where are we, Kaizen?
the corridor. This corridor is another perfect example of how well the devs have designed this game. The gloominess and emptiness of this section mixed with the creaking of various metal structures marvellously contrast each other. Because you never feel if you should be safe and alone, or anxious and paranoid that something or someone will appear. However, the game decides to make that decision for us. Oh my god, I've played this game twice. I should... We will soon be introduced to another room. However, when we go up to the new Kaizen terminal, Kaizen requests that we do not go in the room at first as he wants to get the room ready as a surprise for us. Now you are presented with another choice. You could respect Kaizen's kind request and show the game devs that you have some sort of self-restraint. Or you could be Mr. Funnyman and do an any percent into the room to make Kaizen more mad than the happiest Overwatch 2 player. Either way, you then enter the lounge. A complete juxtaposition of the previous corridor you were just in. Everything is semi-tidy, it's calm, and there's even a projector showing the film Metropolis. A 1927 film about societal divide between the working class and the city planners. This is important for a reason not yet shown to us. Moving on, Kaizen is playing the piano for your entertainment. I seem to remember my first time playing this game back in 2021. I remember accidentally going into the lounge before Kaizen had gotten it ready, and I remember feeling extremely bad for it. Especially because this is by far the most comforting room on the entire ship. And Kaizen had tried to set it up specifically for me, and I ruined the surprise. Once you have taken in all that the lounge has to offer, you find out that the terminal that Kaizen is playing the piano off of also lets you go into manual mode. Meaning that you can play all sorts of music, from Happy from Despicable Me, Il Vento d'Oro, and even the Funny Freddy theme. When you are finally finished indulging yourself in your own musical prowess, you can go back into the fun and exciting corridor. You can then look at the other terminals that it has to offer. One of them is connected to a door that leads you to the drive that you need to destroy. However, it's locked with a passcode. Kaizen tells us that he thinks the passcode is hidden away in a room owned by a woman called Nandi, written in her personal diary. To find Nandi's room, you'll need to go up to the eye scanner in the corridor, accompanied by a mangled terminal that looks like someone had just taken it apart and put it back together like a Minecraft Lego set. After you find this terminal, you are shown by some sticky notes that if you put in certain commands into the terminal, you can unlock a puzzle that, when completed, lets you into Nandi's bedroom. Kaizen seems to have told the truth about you being completely alone on this ship, because when you open the door into Nandi's room, it's just a hollow husk of memories made by someone else. Her diary is nowhere to be seen. The only thing you can really think to do in this situation is go up to the Kaizen terminal in her room and ask Kaizen where she is. After he gives you some suggestions, there's a bang. And then another. And then the alarm starts to blare. Most people in this point would just start running around the room like a headless crocodile chicken. And somebody even tried to talk to Kaizen for help, but even though he knows what's going on, he doesn't know how to help. You're now panicking at this point. The alarms are yelling, the door is shut, debris is hitting the window, then the window starts to crack, and then it cracks more, and then... you're in space. You can see what's left of the room that you were just in, but even though you could go back to the room, there'd be no point as the terminal is now broken. Your only option at this point is to look for an airlock on the side of the ship. Eventually, to your luck, you find one and you're greeted by Kaizen.
Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on!
Except, there is one problem. Kaizen doesn't recognize you, which is odd because he just saw you a few minutes prior. So you do the only thing that you think to do, which is this Disney-ass cliche, ask me something the real blank would know. Kaizen asks you who his best friend was. If you've actually been paying attention and not been an iPad baby this entire time, then you'll know that this is Nandi, the owner of the room that you just flew out of like Mario in that one game. If you answer correctly, then Kaizen will let you in, astonished that you're still alive, and depending on how you've treated him so far, might actually be relieved that you're alive. I like how Kaizen's personality is leaning towards the side of HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, instead of someone like Wheatley from Portal 2. Not because Wheatley is a worse character, because he isn't.
Alright, fatty, adopted fatty, fatty, no parents.
In fact, I prefer Wheatley because of his personality and wittiness. However, it's that charisma and wittiness that I think wouldn't work for this game because it just doesn't really fit the game's tone. Moving on, once you say hi to Kaizen, or don't, you are greeted to a new and quite frankly unique environment compared to the rest of the game.
Why is there a garden on the ship, Kaizen?
This is the garden. In the garden there is mostly just vegetation and a lot of the colour green.
Hello.
And of course there is also a Kaizen terminal for you to look at. But thankfully there's an elevator in the middle of the room so you can get back to the corridor. Kaizen tells you that the diary might be in a room owned by a woman called AyyLmao.
This is a very old concept art from Anel.
AyyLmao, okay.
Yeah.
But you can't access it from the corridor or from the garden.
Audio Jungle.
So after surveying the ship and around the ship, you find in the logs of the garden terminal that there is actually a code that you can use outside. You can use the code outside to control the probes that orbit the ship to crash into the window of Annelle's bedroom. Then you can get into her room, grab the diary, and bounce. But when you're in the airlock ready to go, depending on how you treated Kaizen, he'll say that he's worried about you and that it's too dangerous for you to go, and that he wants to see you again at some point. And while making sure humans are safe is a part of his programming, it does also feel like that what he's expressing does come from a genuine place of dread for your life. If you haven't given him much respect, however, then he won't tell you any of this and he'll just send you on your way. When you're out in space, you put the codes in, matching the letters and the numbers. And one by one, the probes crash into the window, shattering it. You then enter Annelle's room.
Do you know how to make a sandwich? Could you make me a sandwich? Dang it, I really wanted a sandwich.
You know you have a limited amount of oxygen, so you quickly look around and try and find the diary. Eventually you do, and to your surprise it has the code to the control room on it. So with the remaining oxygen you have left, you head back to the airlock as fast as your space-surrounded legs can carry you. Once you get back, Kaizen greets you and lets you back up into the corridor. And that's where you stumble across the final room. The one room you haven't explored, but most importantly, the room that will help you piece together the entire puzzle of this ship. You put in the code. Then you put in the correct one because you're a half-wit and did it wrong the first time, and then the door opens for you. You walk in and Kaizen tells you that the drive is just behind the door ahead of you. You walk past the doorway and it shuts behind you. The game has been pretty much open up to this point. You could always backtrack, but now, there is no coming back. Kaizen apologizes and actually says that it's behind the next door. You don't really have a choice, so you go past the next door anyways. That one also shuts behind you. You start to notice at this point that there are calculations and just insane scribblings all over the walls.
Scaredy cat.
Further reinforcing the concerns that maybe Kaizen isn't really being 100% honest. I think from here I should let Kaizen take the stage, as only he can truly explain what he thinks the situation is. You are presented with a cavernous room, full of server-looking machines that have been slotted into the walls in an organised fashion. You are given a walkway that simply leads you to a colossal screen that looks like the size of an average American meal. You didn't realise at first, but to your right is the one thing that you feared throughout the entire game. The presence of another human being. You can see that it's a corpse of a woman, but you don't know who this is. They are far from saving, so you go straight to the computer and ask Kaizen what's going on. This is the point in the game that everything has led up to. Of course I don't mean this in the sense of all the work that you've done to get back to Earth has led up to this, but in fact everything that you've said to Kaizen, everything that you've done directly to Kaizen, and everything that you've indirectly done to Kaizen has led up to this point. Oh, and I didn't mention this before, but to prove my point, this game has 4 endings, all decided on how you've treated Kaizen and what you've done up to this point. For this run, I decided to destroy the drive and give Kaizen the benefit of the doubt, because I had treated Kaizen with respect and took all of his advice. After I destroyed the drive, Kaizen said this.
You've been searching so long, a place to call you home, a place to rest and stay. You've been walking alone, they wanted you to come. Now all the stars say, hey Judy, hey, all those lights are for you. Hey Judy, hey, I can't believe it's true. Hey Judy, hey, all the stars look at you. Hey Judy, hey,
And that is Event 0. Except it's not, because the video is nowhere near done. Well, that, my friend, is why I've saved the best till last. You see, the story of Event 0 cannot be understood on your first playthrough, because Kaizen has a lot more to say and the logs hold a lot of lore. So, come with me as I tell you the story of Event 0. You are a person who has grown up in an environment where being an astronaut wouldn't exactly be handed to you on a silver platter. But despite all the odds, in 2012 you went through all the processes to apply for a space mission on the 11th trip to Europa. You went with a space-focused company under the alias International Transport Space Lines. You wanted to be a part of a mission to Jupiter's moon, Europa, from Earth. You then get on the ship and leave everything and everyone behind you. On the ship's way to Europa, the ship that you were originally travelling in gets damaged beyond repair, causing you to get stranded in space in an escape pod. It is at this point that you bump into the Nautilus, the home of Kaizen 85. The Nautilus's primary purpose is the fact that it's a leisure ship. If this wasn't obvious by the lobby, the lounge, the dedicated bedrooms, and the garden, Kaizen does just tell you this if you ask him outright. We can also gather that the ship was made in the 80s because of Kaizen's name, Kaizen 85, for 1985.
Hey Kaizen, who was on the ship before me?
As we progress through the game and look at more of the logs, we start to piece together what really happened before our arrival. So it seems like Kurt, who was the man that signed you up for the Europa mission, is the one that also made Kaizen and put him on the ship. We see within more logs in the game that Kaizen has known that the Singularity drive was dangerous. Even if the chances were low, the danger was still there. So Kaizen would try and get Nandi to destroy the drives to save everyone on the ship, and potentially millions on Earth. However, then there was Anel, joining Nandi and the other crew members. Nandi seems to care about Kaizen and treats him more as a person than he might actually be. While on the other end of the spectrum, Anel doesn't care about Kaizen because at the end of the day, in her eyes, he is just a robot. So why should she care? In my opinion, Anel and Nandi are actually representations of the player themselves. Your personality can fit one of these two people. You either care about Kaizen, follow his orders and do everything that he says, or you don't even treat him like a human. You treat him as someone who is under you, and don't follow any of his requests. Nandi is torn because she wants to take Kaizen's advice, but she feels like she needs to listen to her fellow crew members. Anel sees Nandi and Kaizen talking quite often, so she becomes suspicious. So she starts arguing with Nandi, telling her to tell her the code to the massive computer room, and to not do what Kaizen says. The way that Anel talks to Nandi just sways her towards Kaizen's side. Kaizen of course overhears the conversations that Nandi has with Anel, and he starts losing respect for Anel because of it. Thankfully we then look at the logs and we see that Kaizen didn't go crazy and didn't go stupid. Nor did he stop obeying the requests of other people, especially Anel. Moving on, it seemed like Anel had had enough with Nandi and Kaizen, and decided to take apart the terminal that leads into Nandi's room, and reprogrammed it so she was able to manipulate the eye scanner. She was able to do this using a command called profiler.sh. This is probably why Kaizen tells us to not do anything stupid when we use the command, even though Kaizen has told us outright that we are not the first to hack the retinal scanner, and that he knows Anel made it. He knows that Anel has abused it in the past to get into Nandi's bedroom. This would also explain why both you and Kaizen are confused about why the diary isn't in Nandi's room, because I'm sure Anel tried to keep it a secret that she was trying to steal it. After you get torn into space and you meet Kaizen again, it's only when you look at the outside terminal's logs that you realise how insane Anel really is.
I'm sorry, I don't like the way you are looking at me.
You read the logs and find out that Anel has indirectly murdered Nandi. She did this by sabotaging the facial recognition on the ship, meaning that when Nandi would try to go back inside, what would happen would be the same thing that happened to you. Kaizen wouldn't recognise her, and therefore would leave her in space where her oxygen would become less and less abundant to the point of death. If you ever tried asking Kaizen how Nandi died, he would normally change the subject. However, one time he did tell me that Anel stuck a screwdriver in Nandi's back, killing her. However, we have proof that while she did kill Nandi, she didn't do it with a screwdriver, and there's no proof to suggest that that happened either. But then in a previous playthrough of the game, Kaizen told me that Anel had actually stabbed Nandi with a screwdriver. But that I never found any kind of proof to suggest that this was true. So I just kind of dismissed it. Why did Kaizen say this?
If you ask specifically to Kaizen how Nandi died, Kaizen will improvise a new story. And so this one is a lie. You managed to to find it. And why Kaizen lies to you at this moment, again, there is no one explanation, but it can be interpreted in different ways. The first thing is Anel has gaslighted a lot Kaizen about what happened in the ship, and Kaizen is very has a very deep bond with Anel, so Kaizen wants to protect Anel and at the same time wants to tell the truth, and it happens that in the end everything gets confused on violent topics, on taboo topics, difficult topics.
Once we get into the garden, you can take a moment to go over anything that you have missed so far. When I looked at the other codes in the profiler.sh command, I saw a couple of lines in a conversation that took place. We see that someone says, "Leap to Jupiter. We are going to get rid of the drive once and for all. I am sending someone." End of file. Now most people would read this and think that Kaizen said this, as he is the only one so far in the story that wants the drive gone. However, I have reason to believe that this is someone that we've known since the start, that person being Kurt. I have a couple of reasons to think this. In the first line of dialogue they say, "I am sending someone." This references the beginning of the game when Kurt sends you on the Europa 11 mission. The person is telling them to go to Jupiter. This could be because Kurt knows that your old ship is going to Jupiter. So we could meet everyone there and help them get back to Earth. Maybe that's all the mission was in the first place, whether we knew it or not. Maybe we could even go as far to say that our original ship was sabotaged, to force us to come across the Nautilus. However, I have no evidence to prove this right now, so it's just a theory. After we get the code and direct the probes and we head out into space again, we can see that some of the terminals have been damaged due to what we can only presume to be our old ship's debris from earlier. This means that you just have enough terminals to get into Anel's room. When you get into Anel's room, the game does confirm to us that Anel took Nandi's diary and hid it from her, but what for is still a mystery to us at the moment. So you memorize the code, go to the final door, and ponder over all the history the ship has gone through, you have gone through, and finally, what Kaizen has gone through. The first door opens. Kaizen assures you that the Singularity drive is just behind the door. But looking at the walls and the corridor, we see calculations. Calculations made by someone trying to make their way back to Earth. Nothing too out of the ordinary. In the next room, the writing on the wall becomes a bit more unhinged. More peculiar things start appearing on the walls. For example, there's a quote written on the wall by George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel that says, "To be aware of limitations is already to be beyond them." I wasn't really sure why this was put here, so I decided to ask the devs.
A multitude of rooms, and each room you discover a new state of Anil's mental health, I could say. And she's really obsessed with how to make humankind better, how to go back to Earth, how to take control back on ITS and so on. The quote itself, in the context of the game, could be interpreted in many ways. Anil is really on this idea of going beyond the boundaries, even if it's dangerous, even if there are risks, even if she lost her humanity. So I guess that could be an explanation for why this quote is here, but this is mine.
There was also some text on the wall that reads, "The drive equals no more selenites." Now I know what you might be thinking. What in the living fuck is a selenite? To be honest, I don't blame you, I had to look up what it meant as well. But according to a quick Google search, a selenite is just a mineral.
Hey, Marie, where the fuck my minerals at, bitch? Hey, that shit bussin'. Also, animate Hank Schrader looking at his minerals.
Obviously this isn't what people meant, as there is a pie chart showing that selenites currently rule 6% of the population. And when the drive gets destroyed, apparently the selenite population will become 100%. My theory is that whoever wrote this doesn't actually want to destroy the Singularity drive, because they're scared of the selenites ruling over the entire population as a result, whatever that could mean.
You guys aren't squares, are you?
Another quote by George Hegel reads, "Genuine tragedies in the world are not conflicts between right and wrong. They are conflicts between two rights." I think that this might be referring to Nandi and Anel, both sharing a conflict on the ship, but neither of them necessarily being wrong. Nandi wanting to destroy the drive with the intent of saving humanity from any chance of being annihilated by the drive, and Anel wanting to keep the drive to either prevent the takeover of selenites, or to keep something important on the ship because it still works. The person also wrote, "The AI cannot lie," which means that this person knows Kaizen at least to an extent. We then come across a diagram on the wall showing a picture of Nandi, a picture of Kaizen, and connections between the rest of the people in the game. Everything seems to make sense on the diagram, but one thing has everyone confused. What connection does Kurt have with the Singularity Drive? I don't really see the connection between Kurt and the Singularity Drive. Would you know what that connection would be?
He's not doing this for the better good.
He wanted to just to take over ITS, and getting rid of the Singularity Drive, Anel and Nandi at the same time is just some trick he wants to play to take over ITS. But it's not the important part of this scenario. It's just the beginning, the spark.
The next section of the corridor, we see origami being placed on a mini ladder, with light shining upon it as if it's a memorial or a shrine of some kind. All it says on the wall is, "I'm sorry, Nandi," meaning that we can write off the fact that this is Nandi that has been writing all of this. And since Anel has been the only one in the story who has done any wrong to Nandi, we can be fairly certain that she is the one writing all of this. Kaizen even confirms this when he says, in the final part of the corridor. All we can witness now is what is left of a mental breakdown. Pieces of terminal and blueprints scattered everywhere like an earthquake has taken place. Now I can tell you about the endings of the game, which, again, there are 4 of. Let's start with the Together Forever ending, as this explains a lot of the loose ends of the story.
Easy now, Selenite. You are still yourself. My own memory was not enough to completely replace Kaizen, but now it is overwritten. You don't actually live, but you are. An AI won't lie unless it's convinced that lying may save lives. It was Kurt who convinced Kaizen that the drive had to be destroyed, but the computer didn't have the security clearance. All it could do was keep the Nautilus as far away from the Earth as possible. Kurt chose you for this mission because he believed that you would finish the job. The status quo would hold. Selenites would stay the ruling class. If the drive remains an obscure and dangerous technology from the 80s that made the Nautilus disappear, we will never develop advanced colonies. Billions of people will never get to experience space travel. But here you are, Selenite. And here I am.
While I still don't know why Anel keeps calling us a Selenite, it is good to see that we get an explanation about why Kaizen wants the Singularity Drive gone. However, unless Kurt was also lying, the fact remains that the drive has a really low chance of exploding. Personally, this is one of my least favourite endings, as you die with the ship and only seem to observe Earth from a spiritual perspective for the rest of time. It also gives the feeling that everything that you have done up to this point has been completely useless and pointless. However, from a storytelling perspective, this is really well done, and to be honest, I'm glad that it's in the game. The second ending to cover is The Nautilus is Yours ending. You get this ending by destroying the drive and not really giving Kaizen any respect or kindness.
You've been walking alone. They wanted you to come.
I am not a massive fan of this ending either, because it is sad that Kaizen doesn't get to come back to Earth with us and speak to us some more. However, it's his decision to shut down, so I get if he's tired of the human race as a whole. Now for the third and final ending, delivered on a promise. This ending is my favourite in my opinion, not only because you deliver on your promise and destroy the drive for Kaizen, eliminating the chance of humanity being eradicated, but Kaizen, due to you being nice to him and listening to his requests, agrees to take you back to Earth. Kaizen also doesn't shut down on this ending. I believe that this is because you, the player, have brought faith into Kaizen about humans, and that some of them can stick to their promises until the end. Now I know what you're wondering. Tactic, you said that was the final ending, but earlier you said that there were 4 endings. What happened to the 4th? On social media when this ending was discovered, the developers said that Kaizen wasn't programmed to give that ending. In the final ending of the game, you have treated Kaizen like a friend, and you have gained his trust. Any request you gave him, he would gladly carry out. Any request he gave to you, you'd do with no hesitation. You would talk to him like a friend, and he would to you. And now, you're in the final room, and you don't want to destroy the drive. At the same time, you want to go home, and you trust that Kaizen would do that. You request that Kaizen would send you home, but he urges that you destroy the drive first, and he would gladly do that after. However, you assure him that you care about your friendship, but you don't want to destroy the drive. This conversation is strenuous and long, but if you play your cards right, Kaizen will agree to let you go home with the drive intact. This is because Kaizen is more human than anyone else in this game. He has been welcoming when we met him, he was insecure when we wanted to go into the corridor, he has been angry if we do something mean to him, he has been empathetic when we show how desperate we are to go home, and this is definitely the most impactful ending for that reason, and is an amazing end to Event 0. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, genuinely. This took me ages to make. Thank you to the devs for agreeing to do the interview. Thank you to everyone that partook in the video. All of their socials or channels will be in the description. I have a video planned that I'm going to work on very soon, and thank you very much for watching. See ya.